Two young boys were brutally killed in their own home on June 6, 1996. The mother was also attacked and her throat was slashed, but the world was told it was just a superficial wound. The mother was condemned in the media and the jury was lied to. Darlie Routier has spent nearly 30 years on death row. Now, we find out all of the things we thought we knew about this case were wrong. The superficial wound made her lose nearly half of her blood and took an hour-long surgery to fix it. Their so-called expert witnesses, the forensic evidence, it all turned out to be manipulated lies brought forth by an inexperienced police department. The truth is finally being exposed, but will it come in time? Who actually killed those boys? Did we really condemn a woman to death row because she had cosmetic surgery done? Did we really condemn her for trying to have a birthday party to remember her deceased son? Did our justice system just re-victimize a grieving mother for 3 decades? This episode is brought to you by Chaos Rules in Madhouse, Madison County, Missouri. This rural community should be a safe place, but it hides a dark secret. Fredericktown is one of the most dangerous places to live in America. With a crime rate of 31 per 1,000 residents, Fredericktown has one of the highest crime rates compared to all communities of all sizes. I started researching one case sent to me by a desperate grandmother that led me to 15 more. Then I realized this county has had murder, corruption, and chaos since before the Wild West days. This book will start with a lynching by a Fredericktown mob in 1844 and will end up in an explosion. Hold on to your seats when you read this one. You're in for a wild, chaotic ride through rural Missouri. Check out my new book, Madhouse, Madison County, today.
This is a case that you may not know the name, but as soon as I mention one incident, most people will recognize it. They're also going to have some strong opinions about this case. I had some strong opinions about this case, but you need to keep an open mind about it. I ask you to listen to what we have found. I ask you to put aside your cognitive dissonance, put aside your preconceived notions, and listen to what we have to say. And then afterwards, you can make your decision on if this woman is actually guilty or not. We are talking about the case of Darlie Routier. And I've got all kinds of notes here. Now, you may not know her name, but the moment I mention Silly String, a lot of people are going to remember this case. This case was tried in the media. This mother was convicted. She was accused of killing her 2 sons, also slitting her throat in an act to cover it up as if that was a superficial thing. You will find out that she nearly bled to death. She lost half of her blood, and these wounds were not something that she could have self-inflicted. We're going to give you some details. We're going to try to keep it as clean as possible. But I ask you to keep your preconceived notions at bay. I ask you to set them up on a shelf and listen, because this is a case where this woman has sat on death row for 30 years almost, and now things are coming to light to show some serious problems with her trial. We're going to find out that this woman was convicted. We were told over and over and over again that this was a self-centered person. This was a narcissistic person. She was extremely vain. She cared more about herself than her kids. You're going to find all of that information was based on the fact that she wore lots of makeup and she had breast augmentation surgery. So because of those 2 things, she was vilified in the media. And you will find out that she did try to have a private birthday party for her son. And someone brought Silly String because that was her son's favorite thing. And the media got a hold of that because they had some illegal things going on where they were surveilling her and the family without search warrants. You're going to find out there's a lot of problems with this case. So I ask you for the next hour or so, to please put your preconceived notions in a box, set them up on the shelf, hear us out, and then you feel free to disagree with us at the end. But I ask you to please at least give us an hour. A woman's life is on the line, and if this turns out to be true, if we happen to be correct, and I'm not saying we're 100% correct, but if we happen to be correct, not only has our justice system re-victimized a victim's mother, a victim of a vicious attack, a victim of who has lost both of her children or two of her children. Our justice system has re-victimized her for 30 years, and so if we are right, there are drastic consequences and things that we need to think about. So I will tell you up front, I am someone who thinks in the certain situations, the death penalty is probably something we should have. But it is one of those things that you have to use sparingly, and it is something that you have to be 150% sure. People like Ted Bundy, people like that, you can see it being used. But in situations like this, if there's any shadow of a doubt whatsoever, I do not believe that this is a case that should have been on the death penalty. So please hear us out. And keep your comments clean, keep your comments respectful. Realize that there is family of Darlies that watch these things, and realize that whatever your opinion of this woman is, her family doesn't deserve your hatred. Okay. And I hope by the time we're done with this, you're going to have enough questions in your mind that if you sat on a jury, you might think a few minutes before you come out with the decision that this woman has been dealing with for 30 years. So, okay. I have got so many people watching. I'm just going to say hello to everyone and thank you to everyone who has shared. I really appreciate it. Keep the comments going. I really appreciate it. But we're going to talk about on this little family here. We're talking about Darlie Routier. On June 6th, 1996, at 2:31 a.m., a 911 call comes into dispatch, and you will hear her screaming. Somebody has broke into the house. She was sleeping downstairs with the boys. They wanted to kind of camp out. You know how kids do. They wanted to kind of camp out and sleep downstairs, and so she slept down there with them. She had one young man is 5 and one young man is 6. I believe Damon was 5, Devin was 6. She also had a 7-month-old baby named Drake, who slept upstairs with her husband Darren. Now at 2:31, she is screaming. They call 911. She says somebody came into the house. They stabbed her children. One of them was dead by the time the 911 call was made. The other one, they were trying to resuscitate them, but one was already too far gone. Now, in the meantime, she is trying to put towels on them. She's trying to help stop the blood flow. In the meantime, she has suffered massive wounds herself. Now, you will hear in the trial, we were told 100 times in the trial that her wounds were superficial and that they were self-inflicted. You're going to find out within a short period of time that they have determined that this woman killed these 2 boys. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Miss Darlie Routier and her son Damon and Devin. Now, we're going to try to go over this as quickly as possible because there's so much information. I've got 5 pages of notes, and I don't even half the time I don't even take notes. So I can remember things long enough to make a video. But I want you guys to realize that this woman was convicted on specific things. She was convicted on the fact that they didn't find very much evidence of somebody else They didn't find several things. She said that she messed up the story. She told the story slightly different the next time. You're gonna find out that she had been on fin diet pills for well over a month, for almost 6 weeks, and that kind of messes with you. You're also gonna find out that she had been stabbed in the neck and it sliced open in her movement trying to fight. She was stabbed in the shoulder and she was stabbed here all the way to the bone. Okay, so she was stabbed to the point where it went through the muscle, it went through all the tissues, and it actually tapped the sheath around the carotid artery. So she was within 1 to 2 millimeters of losing her life completely. Okay, so if that had happened, she would have literally bled out, and there wouldn't have been no 911 call. So even though that happened, you're going to hear that her wounds were superficial. You're going to hear that she was a self-centered mother. They were having financial difficulties. You're going to find out that she was vain and she was narcissistic. You're going to hear all these hideous things about this woman, basically because she wears makeup. You're going to hear this woman's weight be mentioned at least 100 times in this trial. You're going to hear how she didn't lose enough weight and she's vain and self-centered, and she had been taking these diet pills because she was more worried about her weight than her kids. This woman, I contend by the time we're done with this, you guys are going to be sick to hear how this woman was judged because she wore makeup and had breast augmentation surgery. And you're going to hear how this woman was judged. When is it okay to constantly be mentioning a woman's weight? When is it okay to be saying she's self-centered? So in this society, as women, we are judged. If you don't wear enough makeup, you don't take care of yourself. If you wear too much makeup, you're trashy. If you do something to take care of your kids and you don't take care of yourself, you've let yourself go. If you take too much time for yourself, then you're self-centered and your kids should come first. So women are constantly being pulled and tugged all these different ways, trying to please everybody. And you end up spending half your life realizing you've tried to please everybody else but yourself. And so this is a case where that kind of nonsense shouldn't be in a case whatsoever. But you're going to find that that's all they have. This woman would be convicted on shoddy evidence. You're going to find out that the police contaminated the crime scene over and over again. You're going to find out that one of the officers walked in and told everybody. You're going to learn, it's called the primacy effect. One officer walked in and literally said, nope, there was no intruder. This is an inside job. And they told that to everybody else that come through that crime scene. You're going to find out at least 9 people tramped through that crime scene that night before anybody shut it down with crime scene tape. You're going to find out 4 more people tramped through it the next day. You're going to find out that there's different things that they said she staged the crime scene. So she killed the boys, she staged the crime scene, and then she did these self-inflicted wounds to make it look good. You're going to find out she did this because she was tired of being a mother. I contend if she didn't want to be a mother anymore, she would have killed all 3 of her kids, not just 2 of them. Okay. You're going to find out that she supposedly killed these boys for the life insurance. I believe they had $5,000 on each kid, so that would have been $10,000. Why wouldn't she have killed her husband, who had over $750,000 worth of life insurance? Okay. Why would she, again, if she was so self-centered and just wanted money and didn't want to be a parent, why didn't she follow through and kill all of them? Okay, then she could have lived alone and had $250,000. Okay, so you're going to find out that these things are what she was convicted on. You're going to find out that the prosecutor actually engaged in something that I call mind control. You're going to find out that they found one hook point, and they repeated that and re-showed the video 8 times during the trial. Now, when you understand how easy it is to reprogram the subconscious mind, you're going to find out that this prosecutor was literally programming the jury to get the result that he wanted. Okay, so you're going to find out that this woman was the oldest of, as she was part of a big family, she was the oldest sister. She had younger sisters. You're going to find out that her younger sister was actually involved in the silly string incident. You're going to find out for 30 years that this woman never did tell that. She never did. These people were crucifying her for using silly string at her son's birthday party at the gravesite. And they showed this in the trial 7 or 8 times. You're going to find out that they literally replayed this over and over and said that she was dancing on her son's grave. You're going to find out that she wasn't even the instigator of the silly string. Her son loved silly string, and her younger sister, who was still young, or quite a bit younger than her, thought it would be a good way to remember a little boy who loved silly string. Well, the media caught that. The media caught that and ran with it, and immediately everybody judged her and said that she did it. So I'm going to pause here just a second. It looks like I lost Cricket. I'm going to resend her the link real quick. Tammy, did I miss anything in my kind of intro? I there's so much to go over. Did I miss anything in my intro?
I didn't know if you wanted to go into the situation with her public defense lawyer and then later on having a new lawyer at the last minute.
Yeah, we're going to go over that too. There's so much, like I said, I'm not sure how we're going to fit this in 1 hour, but we're going to do our best. I hated that Cricket's not here because Cricket has a personal story that she's going to share. So I sent her the link and hopefully she can get back in. And when she gets in, I will open the floor for her to talk. So here's what happened. 2:31, Darlie, they make a phone call and Darlie is screaming. You hear it's a heartbreaking, brutal call. You can listen to it online. We're not going to listen to it here. You're going to hear her say that she thinks they're already dead. You're going to hear her say that she's trying to put towels on the child to try to stop the bleeding. You're going to hear that her husband comes running down from upstairs and he tries to do CPR on one child, but unfortunately when he does, that just causes the blood flow to increase. We won't get into details there. But you can use your imagination. There are a lot of hideous photos available online if you want to look at them, but that's not what this channel is about. I have so many victims, family members that watch me, and this is maybe a trigger warning for you, but I want you guys to realize that I will not show anything that drastic. There is one photo of her in the hospital after she's all bandaged up. I will show, and I'll warn you before I flash it on screen, but it is a cleaned up photo. It doesn't show the drastic nature of her wounds quite as much as other photos. But if you can just see those photos, you can tell that they are not superficial. But the jury was repeatedly told, and they used the word superficial at least 50, 60 times in those trial transcripts. You can just read it over and over and over again. And those were just superficial. Those were just superficial. I will tell you where that word came from, and I will tell you what it means. But that is, her wounds were not superficial, and she almost died from them. She literally had to go through a surgery that was well over an hour. for them to sew her up in the trauma surgeon. Then they put her into ICU. Of course, the prosecutor tells the jury that she was in ICU just to hide her from the media, which the hospital does not put people in ICU to hide them from the media. That's not the way the hospital works. They might let an officer guard, they might, bring in a guard, but they do not put people in ICU to hide them from the newspapers, okay? That's not the way that works. She was in bad shape, but the jury did not hear this, okay? The jury did not hear this. So she was in a nightgown, and her nightgown was completely soaked in blood in the front, and then some of it had kind of trailed down the shoulder, down the back just a little bit. She was sleeping on the couch down there. You're going to have an investigator say there was no blood found on that couch. Well, if you look at the pictures and you realize which way her head was facing, there is blood visible on the pictures. So over and over again, you're going to find out that they thought Darlie did this, and they chased Darlie until they could find something to convict her with. They ignored the fact that there were other things in that house. They ignored the fact that she said someone came in. They did find a screen on the window that had been cut. Okay. They said that she did that herself to stage the crime scene. Okay. They also said that there was the coffee table was pushed into out of place. There was a vacuum cleaner that they said was pushed over, and a broken wine glass in the floor. Now, there was other things, but those were the three things they mentioned, and they said that she staged them themselves. Now, what they are going to those were the four main things that they really pushed hard in the trial. Now, first of all, you need to realize the motive is just flat out crap. If she wanted to stop being a parent, now this is going to sound rude, it's going to sound crass, it's going to sound horrible. But think about this. You have to try to put your brain into what they're saying and see if it makes sense. So in the mind that they say she had, she was tired of being woke up all the hours of the night. So she was tired of being a mom. Okay. So she kills the two older boys that don't wake her up every couple hours. And she allows the 7-month-old, the one that is actively waking her up at night. So that doesn't make any sense. Okay. They said over and over and over again in this trial that she was self-centered, and you could tell the way she dressed. Her clothes had to coordinate. Tammy, look at me. You know me personally because you live close enough. We actually do stuff together. Do I not always coordinate? And do I not freak out if I'm not coordinated in my colors?
Absolutely. Yes.
Does that mean I'm going to kill my children?
Who does? Most people do try to coordinate their clothes. So
you know what I mean? Just because she tried to coordinate her clothes, and she had enough money to where she could dress nice, and she had a breast augmentation surgery. She had 3 children. I'm sitting there going, I've had 2 children and I'm almost 45. So if I could do that, I had the money to do that, I would get mine fixed too, But we literally convicted this woman because she had breast augmentation surgery and she wore lots of makeup. So she must have been vain and self-centered. And how dare she take care of her body? She had plastic surgery. And if you look at her, she's not someone who has gone insane with plastic surgery. I mean, you see those videos on Botched where these people kind of get addicted to plastic surgery and they go overboard until they almost look like some kind of, they don't look human anymore. They look kind of off because they literally have overdone their bodies. She wasn't like that. I'm going to show you a picture of her and you're going to see that she was not like that. I'm going to stop and show you a video, I think is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you this video. This is the news clip that she was convicted by. Okay, so you see her here. This is the video that hung Darlie Routier. This is the video. This is Darlie right here. Now, I'm sorry, according to the way I dress, that is dressed down. She's in cutoff shorts, a shirt with a kind of a denim material. Now, you have to realize this is 96, so denim was kind of, a bigger thing. But this is her right here. To me, that is casual. That isn't overdressed. Hey, I'm self-centered and I want all the attention. I mean, Tammy, does that look overdressed to you?
Not at all.
Okay, so you listen to this. This is here. This was, let's see, I believe it was on the 14th. So her sons were killed on June 6th in the wee hours of the morning. On the 14th was Devin's birthday. Now, Devin was going to be 7, and he was extremely excited about his party. They had already planned it with the friends. They had already bought all the decorations. They had already done all this, and he really wanted silly string. Okay? Now, here's the deal. They use this video of the mother shooting silly string over her son's grave and all of these balloons and her trying to be happy. They use this and they showed this to the jury during the trial 8 times. It was replayed during their discussions. It was replayed again a few times then. So I'm sitting here going, if you have seen this video 10, 12, 15 times, that's subconscious programming. Any marketing professional will tell you. They know for a fact what they do is they find some kind of emotional hook point. If you want to sell something, you find an emotional hook point and you keep showing your customer that emotional hook point over and over and over again. And studies show that after 8 times, even if it was an outright lie, you are going to start believing it. By the time you see that 12 times, you are inclined to buy. Okay? That's what every marketer on the planet knows those things. Okay? And yet they were literally showing this to the jury. Now, they should be showing fingerprint evidence. They should be showing forensics. They should be showing all of this stuff. Instead, they're showing this. This is what this woman was in trial for. Now, I'm going to scoot it forward here till I get to a certain part. We're not going to watch the video. Look at this woman right here. This is the woman who we say is so vain. This is the woman who wears too much makeup. This is the self-centered woman who's obsessed with herself and plastic surgery. She's not wearing any freaking makeup there. Do you see her, Tammy?
Yeah, I see her.
I wouldn't go out in public looking like this.
Right.
So I guess I'm more vain than her. I'm sitting here going, but look at her neck. She still has scars. To this day, she has scars. So if she was so freaking vain, she wouldn't have gone out looking like a rag mop. And she wouldn't have intentionally scarred herself to where it would be seen. So what I'm trying to get through, and I'm trying not to get so hot-headed and emotional, and I'll apologize for being so. We are told this woman killed her kids because she is so vain. She is so self-centered. She is so this. She wears too much makeup and she just doesn't. I'm sorry. She looked kind of like a ragamuffin there. She didn't look overdressed. She didn't look with too much makeup. She didn't have her hair fixed. I'm like, my mom would be like, you look like a ragamuffin. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. I don't believe she looks bad. I don't believe she looks like a ragamuffin. I don't believe she had to put makeup on. I'm trying to break their motive. Now, if you can't see how ridiculous their so-called motive is, then maybe you're still hanging on to that cognitive dissonance. Maybe you're still hanging on to your preconceived notion. Okay? But this is what this woman was convicted on. Okay? So I don't believe she was that vain. I don't believe that she wore too much makeup. I don't believe her boob job had anything to do with this. I think she was trying to take care of herself, because if she didn't, you would hear people griping about her letting herself go. Okay? So, but 4 days after that video, she was arrested for the murder of her sons. 4 days later. Now, I'm going to, if that doesn't shock you enough, I'm going to tell you something. They say that this woman is the most self-centered person on the planet, and she killed her kids because she's just evil. There was a little girl in that video, and I'm not going to show it again. You guys can go back and look at it if you want to, because I wasn't wanting to make a spectacle out of her. There was a little girl there. Her younger sister was there. Her younger sister was still pretty young. Her younger sister was the one that wanted to bring the silly string. So throughout this trial, they are literally destroying Darlie, because how dare she dance on her son's grave? That was the phrase that they said. She's dancing on her son's grave. They said it over and over and again. They kept showing the picture over and over, kept watching the video. She stood there and took it. She took it for 30 years on death row. She has never come forward to tell the public that that wasn't her idea. It was her little sister's. At that point, if she had been a self-centered sack of crap like they said she was, she would have thrown her sister under the bus. But she already knew her sister was hurting enough, and she wasn't going to put her sister through anymore. So she stood there and took it. Now, how is that a self-centered sack of crap? How is that a narcissist? A narcissist would have thrown her child sister under the bus.
And like you said, if she was so vain about her look, she wouldn't have put a thing across her neck and make a scar. She wouldn't do that. So
she would have scarred herself in some. She wouldn't have scarred herself first. She would have done something superficial and not scarred herself. And she definitely wouldn't have scarred herself in a way that you would see from now on. You
and they didn't show the family grieving over the children at the funeral. According to her other sister, they had all cried and cried and cried until they could not cry anymore. They were just exhausted, and they were doing that for Devin. They were doing that for Devin because he wanted silly string on his birthday. He was so excited for it, and that was their way of trying to honor him.
Yep. Well, and that was all the same day. They said that they had already had, was it a 2-hour or a 4-hour memorial service? I can't remember what they said. I don't remember. It was, they had a public memorial service for those children that morning, and they cried their eyes out. They did all the grieving. They just absolutely fatigue. When you are grieving like that, you just cry until you are a limp rag and you can't cry anymore. You cry until you're not sure if your tear ducts still work. And so they had already done that morning, and the prosecutor intentionally kept that information away. They just said, hey, look here, she's dancing on her son's grave with silly string. They also didn't tell you that all of those gifts that all of those children had brought to her son for his birthday, all those balloons and all that, she packed it up after they were done. She packed it up and took it to the local children's home and donated it for all those children to try to make them happy in the name of her deceased son. So this is the narcissist that the prosecutor is telling you killed her own kids because she's so self-centered. Okay? They didn't tell you all these other things. Now that's bad enough. All of that's bad enough. But you're going to find out that the police didn't have a warrant to do all of that. They had bugged the graveside, filmed them without viable search warrants. They didn't. When you get a search warrant, you have to go before a judge and you have to give them specific evidence of what you want to search for. You also have to, when you want to put in wiretaps and all that stuff, you have to tell them exactly what you're trying to look for. They don't give you an open door policy to where you can just record them day and night, everything they do from now on without specific reasons. They did not have those legal loop. They didn't have all those legal check. They didn't check all the boxes. They did not have it. They were doing illegal surveillance. And she said, the sister, you can watch these videos where her sister has come forward and is trying to raise awareness about what really happened. The family was immediately put under a gag order. Okay. So when this came out in the media, they couldn't counter it. They couldn't come forward and say, no, that's not what that was about. They couldn't defend themselves to the media. And yet her original attorney got the information and found out that the police department had actually been leaking the information to the media. So the police weren't under a gag order. So whatever they wanted to put out to the media, they could. And then this family couldn't defend themselves. So that's illegal as well. If it's under a gag order, the police aren't supposed to talk to the media either. Nobody's supposed to talk to the media. If there's a gag order, you're not supposed to say anything. Okay? But the police not only were illegally surveilling, they chose this intimate, quiet moment. They had already had their public grieving moments. They were trying to have a quiet moment. Now, let me tell you, as someone who has studied trauma recovery, someone who studies psychology, I will tell you what I saw the first time I watched Darlie Routier spray silly string over her son's grave. I saw a grief-stricken mother trying to create a moment of happiness when there was nothing to be happy about. That is what I saw when I watched that video. Now, you're also going to find behind the scenes that the sister revealed in one of her interviews that the police had given them some good news recently. Tammy, you want to tell them about that while I get a drink? I'm about to choke to death.
One of the investigators had just got done telling the family, and the sister knew because she was sitting in the car with him when they were told that supposedly they had gotten DNA from underneath of her fingernails. That the perpetrator was going to be caught very soon.
Right.
So they were kind of like celebrating that moment also. But I don't even know if the cop was telling the truth on that.
Well, that's the thing. They had just gotten good news. The cop had reassured the family that they had gotten DNA evidence and they were going to get the guy. They were going to arrest the guy. They were going to get this guy. Okay? They didn't tell them that they were looking at her. They didn't tell them that they had so-called DNA evidence against her. You'll find out they have no DNA evidence against her. You will find out the only forensic evidence they have has been corrupted. And there's one piece of glaringly obvious, a smoking gun type evidence that they are flat out ignoring because it didn't fit their narrative. So basically, the police baited her into being happy and then filmed her being happy and used it against her in court. That is the freaking definition of entrapment. Do you know of any better definition of that? I mean, good grief.
And what about the so-called expert witnesses? Were you going to mention any of that?
Yes, we're gonna go over that right now. I think I got through. Okay, we got through the wounds of trial. Okay, trial is on January 6, 1997. They're constantly replaying the silly string video. They're constantly telling you how horrible this person is, how self-centered, how narcissistic, how all this. Then they bring forward their expert. Now, let me tell you about this expert. They went. Let me tell you how they collected the evidence first. They had an officer come in and dust for fingerprints. So they dusted around the screen that was cut. They just dusted the windowsill. They dusted that whole room. Then they moved right into the kitchen and started dusting the whole kitchen. They took all the knives out of the knife block and dusted those because one of the knives in that block was the one that they believed killed the kids. Did any of you catch what happened right there? Did you catch the mistake? The officer dusted the window, moved into the next room, dusted the whole kitchen, never changed brushes. Okay. So they dust one of the knives in the knife block for fingerprints. They don't find anything. Then they take that same knife and they put it under a microscope and they say they found one fiber that looked, they didn't do any testing, that looked similar to the window screen. So they say she used that knife to cut the screen and stage the scene. For one, they did not follow through and actually do chemical testing to see if it was a fiber from the window screen. For two, it was one fiber that could have definitely been transferred by the brush that they had just used on the window screen. So you have an officer who is supposed to know about forensics, who's going to supposedly know about transfer DNA, who's going to know about transfer evidence, and yet this person dusts the screen with the fingerprint brush and then turns around and dusts the knife with the fingerprint brush. Then they find a fiber. They don't go ahead and fully investigate it. They say it looks similar, and that is their big forensic evidence to say she used that knife to cut the screen herself and stage the scene. How many of you in the comments believe that that's actually what happened, or do you believe that that fiber was transferred by the investigator? Let me know what you think. Sorry, let me know in the comments, guys. I'm curious. Do you think I'm just crazy and off the wall here? Do you think that that fiber is actually because she used the knife? Tammy, what do you think?
Well, I think they contaminated the crime scene. That was just one.
That was one.
So
you're going to find out that there was police officer boot prints in blood, that they contaminated the blood evidence by walking through it. You're also going to find that they left one officer. The reason why this woman didn't get bail was because they said they had a hair that was her hair that was found in that window. So the judge didn't give her bail because they found that hair. That hair turned out to be one of the female officers' hair. They contaminated that crime scene in just about every way you can contaminate it. You're going to find out that the forensic evidence, Charles Lynch was the state's so-called forensic science expert. Okay, he was not a certified fiber analyst. He was not certified at all. And he had previously worked as a microscopic hair analyst. He had not taken the expert proficiency test for hair and fiber analysis. So he was not certified, and he didn't even work with fibers. He worked with hair, and he wasn't certified even in hair, but he didn't even have the evidence. He didn't have the experience in fiber. And he was the one that looked under a microscope and said, that looks kind of like the screen. Now, you will find that they did recommend to go ahead and get it chemically analyzed to make sure. And they did not follow through with that. And they were not allowed to say that on the stand. They just said, oh, yeah, it looks like it. Okay. So you're going to find out that their forensic expert was not an expert at all. Okay. You are going to find out, they said dozens and dozens of times. They found out, you'll find out that they said that there was no blood on the couch, so she couldn't have been laying on the couch. You're also going to find they said that they sprayed luminol in the sink because they believe she slit her throat over the sink. Okay. Then why did it drip down her back? Is what I want to know. She said she was laying on the couch. But they said she was leaned over the sink. They did not look for footprints outside or inside the house, but they put luminol in the sink. Now, I'm going to say something that might not be overly PC, okay? But if you know me, you know I'm not really politically correct anyways. Were these people vegetarians? Did you read anything about them being vegetarians, Timmy?
No, I didn't see anything on that.
I have read and watched and watched. I have not seen one thing that said they're vegetarians. If you have cooked any kind of meat, if you have thawed meat out in your refrigerator to cook, you have had blood go down your sink. I'm sorry, I had some hamburger thawed out in the fridge. I set it out overnight so I could cook with it. That meant I had blood in the bottom of a bowl that I had to wash, and it went down the sink.
Right.
So if these people are vegetarians, it makes no freaking sense for anybody to ever spray luminol on the kitchen sink. Of course, there's going to be blood in the kitchen sink. Okay, so this shows you how far this police department went to prove their theory. So you don't prove your theory. You follow the facts and let the facts give you a theory. Okay. You don't have a theory in mind and then try to find evidence to go with it.
And shop around for so-called expert witnesses to match up. And I learned from this case that I didn't know how common it was that you just shop around for the so-called expert witnesses to support your theory. You shop around for those and you pay them.
Mm-hmm.
Say,
and you just get whichever one will say what you want them to say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That doesn't mean that it's actually true. That doesn't mean they're lying, but that's their opinion. And you just find someone that has an opinion that matches yours and you pay them some money and there you go.
Yep.
Now, you're going to find out that they didn't look for footprints. They didn't look for anything like that. You're also going to find they overlooked a bloody fingerprint. They overlooked that. That didn't go along with their idea of what happened. So they just ignored it. Come to find out, the sister has been fighting and fighting and fighting, and the Innocence Project has taken up this case, and they have been working with the District Attorney Conviction Integrity Unit. And they have proven that fingerprint was not Darlie's. That first they tried to say it was one of the boys. Then they tried to say it was Darlie's. Then they tried to say it was one of the officers that came through. It has been proven that it wasn't anybody in that house that was supposed to be in that house. So that is the glaring smoking gun that points to an intruder, like this mother said. Okay, but they didn't bring that up on the witness stand. They did not allow that in there because it gave reasonable doubt. So these people are cherry picking which evidence they want the jury to hear. Okay? So if that doesn't make you question anything, I've got more. Now, you're going to hear that I'm going to show you. I've got more pictures and I keep forgetting to put them up. Okay. So I'm going to show you her wounds. So this is a trigger warning. Anybody doesn't want to see this? I did not get the worst one. I got the cleanest one I could. This is her in a hospital bed. If it's too much for you, look away for a minute, please. This is her right after surgery. She was cut across the neck here. She was stabbed in this shoulder. You will find that she was also stabbed in the elbow right here. Now that is a defense wound. But they say that she stabbed herself in the neck, she cut herself across there, and she stabbed herself in the shoulder, and then she stabbed herself in the arm. Now, to do all that, she would have had to use her non-dominant arm to do that. So she stabbed herself and cut herself 3 times with her non-dominant arm. And yet she still barely missed the carotid artery so she wouldn't die. But you'll find that in the medical records, she did lose half of her hemoglobin. Most of the time, you can't survive losing half of your hemoglobin. So then they want to bring up the fact that her story changed. They want to bring up the fact that she didn't have very good memory. They wanted to bring up the fact that she may have didn't respond on the 911 call the way she should have. Maybe she should have done more CPR on the boys. Maybe she should do this. She was freaking dying, and it was only the adrenaline pumping through her system that was keeping her moving. Now, if you listen to any of the coaching that I've ever done, which most of you guys haven't, you'll learn that when you study biochemistry, when your brain sends out an excess of cortisol and adrenaline, it shuts down the higher functioning parts of your brain, and all that's left is this fight or flight mechanism. Okay, you don't think straight. You can't figure out what to do. Your body literally starts shutting down. You've got too much cortisol in your system. Your stomach stops digesting food. Your cells stop reproducing. Your kidney and liver stops filtering toxins. And all of the oxygen is pushed to your arms and legs so you can fight or run. Your heart starts going 100 times faster than it's supposed to. Your lungs, everything starts going as fast as it possibly can. And the brain literally starts suffocating from lack of oxygen, and it just hits it in the one fight or flight part of your brain. Everything else shuts down. Okay, so you have someone who's overdosed on adrenaline and cortisol. Now, in a fight or flight instance, that's a good thing, but we're not supposed to maintain that for very long, okay? Or your body starts shutting down from the inside out. Well, the problem is she not only had all of that going on, she had been taking Fen-Phen for 45 days, which extremely thins your blood, messes with your nervous system, messes with your cognitive functioning, messes with your lung functioning and your heart functioning. Okay, so she had that against her, and she was losing half of her blood. So she forgot a couple things. Do you think you could have done any better? I mean, you need to understand how the body works before you judge somebody on their behavior in such a heightened state of chaos. I mean, just the stress alone is enough to make someone not be able to think straight. But then the fact that she's got all of this stress, she's got this medication, that they had a massive lawsuit a short time later that took it off the market because it was so devastating to the body. Okay, so she had all of these things working against her, and then she lost half of her blood too. So her story did change a bit. Nothing of the major points, but some of the minor things as she was calming down, as she was recovering from surgery, as she was getting her head back on straight. She was literally starting to remember a few things and get something. Then things started coming back. I mean, to me, that makes sense, Tammy. Doesn't it make sense to you?
Yes, and they didn't bring out the like the Fen-Phen effects. Did they even bring that out in court? Because it has big effects on short-term memory, and it's 3 weeks, is what I read.
Yep.
And they wanted to use that against her short-term memory issues, but they didn't even bring out all the things you just brought out, I don't think.
No, and people don't want to admit the fact that cortisol and adrenaline in itself will screw you up. Okay, they don't want to admit that, so they're like, oh, she didn't react the way I would have, or he didn't react the way I would have. Well, how the heck do you know? Martial artists, the top martial artists, they will do the same exact thing 10,000 times because they know in that heightened moment of stress, they're not going to be able to think about what to do. They need it in their muscle memory, so they just automatically do without thinking because they know that their brain isn't going to function correctly in that moment. Okay, so we're judging a woman based on our ability to think. We're judging a woman based on our cushy seat where we're at, not having watched our 2 children brutally murdered in front of us. we're not going through this and have our throat slit open and us sitting here, we're sitting here on our duffs judging a woman because she couldn't think straight in a moment near death. So we really need to back off this. And I really feel like if this case had happened now, this woman may have got a fair trial, but she didn't at that point in time. We're going to find out that her own defense attorney wasn't actually really in her corner either. But before we go there, I want to talk about, if you hear my dog in the background, I'm sorry. He thinks it's time that he needs a treat, so he's going to have to just hush and wait. They found. I'm going to show you this. This is another big part of the prosecutor's evidence. A sock. This is their smoking gun. This is a sock. It was found here. Their house is over here. This is an alley that goes in between this set of houses. So she supposedly staged all this. Okay. That sock had had a spot of the boy's blood on it. Okay. So she supposedly killed her sons because she didn't want to be a parent anymore. So she just decided to kill 2 out of 3. Then she decided she was going to cut the screen with a knife. She didn't use the same knife that she just supposedly stabbed the kids with. She decided to get a good clean knife to cut the screen. And then I'm being sarcastic, of course, if you haven't told, she also decided she was going to get rid of evidence. So she ran out the door and she ran down this alleyway 75 yards and threw away a sock. The sock didn't even end up in the dumpster. That's not even her dumpster. She just threw a random sock at the dumpster and it landed in a pile of trash around the dumpster and then ran back to the house. Okay. For one, if she had already slit her throat, she'd have been dead by then. Say she slit her throat afterwards, just to give the prosecutor the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Here we go. Why not get rid of the murder weapon? Why get rid of a random freaking sock? Why run 3/4 of a football field away to get rid of said sock? So that's the evidence. That's the evidence. She threw away a sock. Okay. Does that make, is that what you would do, Tammy? Would you throw a sock away?
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, that sock was devastating.
That's the smoking gun right there, isn't it? That sock.
Yeah, gotta get rid of the sock, man. The sock. That was what was going to nail her, put the last nail in her coffin was the sock. She had to have the sock. Now, you also find out that the reason why they kept saying this was a superficial wound. Now, I've done a video on my YouTube channel. If you have not seen it, I suggest you go look at it. It is when partial FBI files destroy cold cases. Okay. And it is where I go into detail about how if you cherry pick, you can get an FBI file sent to you. And they are highly redacted. So you don't get the whole picture and all of the evidence. You just get what they want you to see. Okay. If you cherry pick information out of that, you have to be really careful because you don't get the whole picture, you don't get the whole story, and you can destroy the whole case by looking at a highly redacted FBI file. Okay? They decided to take one word out of the entire medical file and use that against her. Okay? Now, when you are talking about body parts in relation to other body parts, you call them superficial if they are closer to the skin than the other body part. Okay. So one time the doctor says the wound was superficial to the strapnoid muscle. Okay. It had gone through the platysma muscle and had touched the sheath that covers the carotid artery, but it was superficial to the strapnoid muscle, which is below those things. So it didn't go all the way that deep is what that means in medical verbiage. Okay. They took the one word, superficial, and said all of her wounds were superficial. She did it herself. They did not read the whole sentence. They took it out of context. They didn't read the whole sentence. That merely meant the wound was closer to the surface than that muscle. That's all it was. And they took that and they said it 10,000 times. They said it 10,000 times that she did this to herself, that her wounds were superficial. Well, let me tell you something graphic. And if it bothers you, plug your ears for a second. She had a little necklace on that they think may have saved her life because there was a nick in it. When she was stabbed and cut, that was dragged through and stuck in the wound. They tried to get it out in the ambulance and it was too painful for her. They couldn't do it. So they removed the necklace from the wound in the operating room. If you were going to do that to yourself, would you go ahead and stuff your necklace in it? See, all of this was left out of the trial. You're going to find out that the defense attorney that she had, the defense attorney that she had was a assigned court appointed attorney, and he was actually trying to file the motions, and he was trying to get expert witnesses to counter their so-called experts. He was actually trying to help her. Within just a few weeks of the trial, some of her, we're not going to go into what we think. There was an attorney hired for her for $90,000. This attorney did not have time to prepare and actually actively said, we won't bring your name up in this case. If you pay us $90,000, we will do this and we won't bring up your name, because there was somebody else close to her that there was some rumblings along the line that, well, maybe they had a better motive than she did. So this person was hired and actively said, you pay me $90,000, I will defend her and I'll make sure your name doesn't come up.
Isn't that criminal?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. This is a reason why I'm not specifically saying this person's name, either one of them. You can look it up if you want to. But here's my thing. If that actually happened, because we have to say allegedly, if that actually happened, that attorney should be held liable. That attorney should have charges come up against them, because they did not defend Darlie. They merely ran interference for somebody else who had a better motive for Darlie. So they not only hindered the hindered her defense, they actively followed along with the prosecutor. So she did not have a defense. She had two prosecutors. And yet 30 years later, when I call Tammy and say, hey, have you heard of Darlie Routier? She says, no. I said, you know the woman with the silly string? Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. We still, 3 decades later, have judged this woman on silly string and not the evidence. And yet this woman is still sitting on death row. Now, I hate it that Cricket's not here. I think she's trying to watch elsewhere, but I hated that Cricket's not here to tell you the story yourself. So I will try to tell it the best that I can, because we're running out of time. Perry, has she always proclaimed her innocence? Yes, and this woman has actually turned down plea deals to get off of death row. If she was guilty, she would have taken that plea deal. But she says, I will not admit to killing my sons when they were my world. And she has actively, she's like, you can kill me if you want to, and you will know that my innocent blood is on your hands, because I did not kill my sons. And she has actively proclaimed her innocence and turned down offers to get her off of death row if she just took a plea deal. So this is a woman that is supposed to be so self-centered and so narcissistic. She actively protected her little sister. She actively refused to take a plea deal that would make her life better. She actively did these things. So to me, those are not the behaviors of a narcissist. Those are not the behavior of a vain, self-centered person. Okay, those are the opposite of those behaviors. Now, I will try to tell you a Cricket story since Cricket's not here. Cricket, I do all of the paperwork and the investigating on paper. I do all the, I do all of the writing and the videos and I do all that stuff. She's the boots on the ground. She's the one that has actively done search and rescue. Cricket is. Now, Cricket has had some cases where she was on the ground, boots on the ground, and they literally inform her. The group of people that she was working with literally inform the group, you need to watch yourself anytime there could be a camera around. No laughing, no joking, no smiling, no trying to make the victim's family feel better if they're there working with you. None of that. Because if the camera sees you, they will literally destroy us and we will end up being thrown off the case. So when we can allow the media that much power with no cross-checking anything, we have a problem. We have a serious problem when the media can crucify a woman and put her on death row for 3 decades with no evidence. She was convicted on they said that there was a wine glass that was broken and it was on top of the blood. So she must have put it there to stage it. Well, you'll find out that the investigator came the next day and shook the wine rack. You'll also find out that they found that there was glass that glass had actually been broken in the rack and had been bumped off afterwards. So there was glass shattered still in the rack. But they're not going to tell you any of that. Every little piece of evidence that they have that random sock that she ran 75 yards bleeding to death just to get rid of. You've got the wine glass that's there, and you've got that knife that's got a transferred, I guarantee you it was transferred by the fingerprint brush that wasn't changed from room to room. You need to change that because you're going to pick up as much stuff as you drop off of those brushes. They use the basic blush brush that I use on my makeup. Okay? So they literally picked it up from one place and transferred it to another. That was that was all the evidence they had against this woman. That and her boob job and her makeup and this non-existent facade that they created about this person. They created this character that was not her. She came from a large, well-connected family that were really close-knit, very loving. They did everything together, and now she has been labeled and ostracized as a murderous, narcissistic, evil woman who deserves to die. All because of a illegally taped video taken out of context and 3 pieces of false evidence. So I ask you, I'm going to tell you one, because I'm a psychology, I love studying this stuff. There is something called the illusory truth effect. In 1977, they did a study at 2 different universities, and what they did was they had a group of individuals, and they were told that they were going to tell them a lie. Okay? And they knew at the beginning of this test that this was a lie. Now, they were going to listen to this lie over and over and over and over and over again. They listened to that lie. They were told that lie dozens and dozens of times. Over the course of a short time, they begin to question reality. They begin to question, well, maybe it's not a lie. By the end of it, 70% of those individuals believed that it could be the truth, when they knew from the beginning that it was a lie. This was a trial. This was a scientific study. You can look it up. It's called the illusory truth effect. If you hear a lie long enough, you will start to question your truth. You'll start to question reality. Eventually, you will learn to believe a lie. That's the reason why so many people get past lie detector tests, because they've lied to themselves long enough they believe it. So I want you guys to look at this case honestly. Look at it honestly. If you have the guts and you want to see the gore, you can go online and look it up. Just type in Darlie Routier wounds and you'll see more than you want to see. Trust me. That's not what this channel's for. I'm not going to put it up there. But I will tell you that if you still believe without a shadow of a doubt that this woman belongs on death row, I ask you, are you a victim of the illusory truth effect? Are you a victim of that subconscious programming from hearing a lie too many times? And that's where I'm going to leave it. I do know that the Innocence Project is actively working on this case, but they have been working on it for a long time. So I ask you to share this. We need to kick up a media storm, and we need to get this woman out. If she is not a murderer, I'm not going to tell you she's not. I'm going to let you make your own decision because I believe you have the critical thinking skills to figure it out for yourself. If she is innocent, our justice system has taken a victim of murder, a victim of assault, and we have re-victimized her for 3 full decades. When is enough enough? Tammy, you have anything else to say?
Well, there's so much more to this, but we don't have time to go into all of it. But
I know I'm over an hour, and you know I could
so
just
many
like
more reasons to believe that she's innocent. I do want to touch back on the lawyer, and I won't mention any names, but I did a big red flag to me was that her first public defense lawyer was so concerned about the second lawyer taking over that he actually filed a conflict of interest with the judicial records, which they said is very, very uncommon. So it was very concerning to the original defense attorney. He was very
well,
concerned with the second
and
one.
he was a public defender, and normally the public defender is the one that you're griping about, and this guy was actually trying, and he, so yeah, it is very rare that the public defender is going to fight so hard for something, but there are a lot of videos out there, and there are so many people that will yell and scream and troll you to death, and I'm seriously considering turning off the comments on this video after it's published because I'm like, I'm not interested in dealing with people's BS. If you are sitting on, I have sat as a juror, and I was on a death penalty case. I was on a murder trial. They tell you, they instruct you, especially with a death penalty case. They say, if there's any reasonable doubt, you cannot convict them of this. You have to convict them without any reasonable doubt. Now, the reasonable doubt in my mind comes from all of their evidence is questionable, their motive is insane, and they are absolutely refusing to look at that evidence of the bloody fingerprint of an unknown person. To me, that is enough questionable doubt that you should be able to say, this person needs a retrial. And that's where I'm at. Tammy, you want anything else? We're going to get out of here.
Well, I don't believe that she would self-inflict herself that much. I mean, that's just crazy. Almost kill yourself with a knife and cut your throat.
Yeah.
And then also I wanted to kind of mention the so-called body language experts. If anybody watches that, they just rip her apart. And that's
the body language. When you
Yeah.
realize the illegitimacy of actual body language experts, you'll find out that most of them are laughable. You have to understand a person's normal behavior and their normal body language before you can put them in and analyze them. You know, people would say that I was closed off. Well, before, when I actually was suffering from fibromyalgia, before that all got healed and taken away, I used to sit like this with my arms crossed under my chest. And they would automatically say that meant that I was closed off and I was hiding something, and I was, It meant nothing other than I had 2 spots in the middle of my spine that were messed up between my shoulder blades, and my chest was too heavy to hold up. And to sit up straight, I had to cross my arms. So when it comes to body language experts, most of them I call BS. And so if you want to watch videos, there are a few that you need to watch, but I would recommend that you watch the ones that actually have her sister in them.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the show notes for you.